Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
We hear you clearly.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
All right, good
go ahead.
afternoon.
Sorry for that.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants and colleagues. My name is Sylvia Bantu Ahene. I'm a food scientist and an assistant research scientist at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Science and Technology Policy Research Institute in Ghana, and I'm the Secretary General of the Abstract Committee. It's an honor to welcome you all to this session of the ASFI conference, where we come together to advance knowledge and inspire innovation across diverse fields of study. As part of our commitment to equipping researchers with cutting-edge tools and skills, I have the privilege of introducing the first workshop of our bootcamp series titled AI Tools for Research Innovation. This workshop explores a topic of immense relevance and potential in today's rapidly evolving research landscape. We all can attest to how artificial intelligence has transformed how we approach challenges, analyze data, and derive insights in recent times. Leading us through this session is a highly esteemed expert, Dr. Daniil Lisik. Dr. Daniil Lisik is a medical doctor and software engineer based in Gothenburg, Sweden. After graduating from medical school in 2021, he embarked on a PhD exploring the heterogeneity of respiratory diseases using machine learning approaches. In his daily work, he analyzes data from large population-based studies to derive clinically meaningful subgroups of asthma and related disorders, ultimately aiming to outline groups at risk of adverse outcomes and related disorders. Ultimately aiming to outline groups at risk of adverse outcomes and identify actionable risk factors for prevention and effective personalized treatment. Leveraging his software development background in the telecom industry, spanning 8 years and counting, his work lies in the intersection of respiratory medicine, epidemiology, and the rapidly evolving field of artificial intelligence. He is passionate about open sourcing technology to accelerate research and democratize participation in scientific discovery and validation. He is a frequent speaker at international conferences and believes anyone can make use of AI to increase their productivity and achieve new heights. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Daniil Lisik to share his expertise with us. Daniil, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, for the kind introduction. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah, we hear you clearly.
Great. Yep. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yep. I just want to start this presentation by saying that I'm very impressed by this organization, so to say. Can you see my presentation slides as well?
Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, just a few years ago, as I understand, you started ASFI to begin with, and in just 2 years you're here, and yeah, I can only imagine how it will be in the coming years. So I'm very excited to see the successes, the continued developments and successes with ASFI, and yeah, speaking of impressive things, I would say that most of us are quite impressed or have heard about the great hype nowadays with AI, that it can achieve so much and help us to do so much. But it also has created this huge mess, as you can see in this figure, that there's a lot of people who want to make money on AI. There's a lot of different tools. There are a lot of different methods. Everyone say that they are the best, that they can achieve the best results, which ultimately kind of counterintuitively makes it a bit difficult to use AI because it's almost difficult to know where should I even start. So what I want to do in this presentation is I simply want to take it from a research perspective and describe some of the tools that I have found to increase the productivity and the quality when you perform research. I want to basically share some insight into how I think you can maximally utilize AI while at the same time spend as little money as possible, because many of these software or AI products are quite pricey and not always deliver on results as they should. I will also reflect a little bit on the different ways that AI can be used in bad ways, how to avoid suboptimal or dishonest use of AI in your own work, and also see through it in others, and also discuss a little bit about the balance between us humans and the AI algorithms, how best we can achieve the optimal balance, so to say, and also where I think AI is heading in the future. So, of course, we all hear that AI is very powerful and can do quite incredible things, but it's also true that AI is quite clueless, because even the most advanced models work by statistical methods. They don't have a fundamental understanding of reality or concepts that we humans do. And this brings us to a point that it's important to think about, is AI really useful for my research? Because it's not always the case that it's the best way to go forward. For example, one dilemma with AI, or one such
Sorry,
case
Daniel,
is that,
if I
yeah,
can you be on presentation view, because we see the double windows.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure actually where. Uh, is it better now, or?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's fine.
So one of the things with AI is that although performance, you get quite impressive performance, it also comes at a cost, typically, with how well you can explain the model. So the very advanced models, the deep neural networks, for example, are quite difficult to understand. How did it come to a certain conclusion? How did it find these different patterns in the data? It's also true that while performance increases, so does the amount of data that you need. Oftentimes, if you want to use the more advanced approaches, unfortunately, you need so much data that it's not feasible. So you either need to collaborate with other cohorts or other researchers who also have similar data, or you should sometimes opt for more for less data hungry algorithms. And finally, one thing that may be a bit counterintuitive perhaps is that, but also makes sense from a statistical point of view, is that the usefulness of AI is increased with the complexity of the data. So for example, if you have very simple data such as, for example, survey responses, it's you can do almost the same with traditional statistical methods as with AI. But if you, on the other hand, talk about if you have, for example, image data or some signal data from wearable devices and so on, then you can achieve much more with AI compared to the statistical methods that we have had traditionally. But beyond that, it's quite challenging to implement AI regardless. Some of the things that need considerable attention and thought is the privacy and ethics of it, because these models are often connected to the internet, where these, for example, services that provide AI services for you, they collect data. So when you upload, for example, a data set, it can be used for training the model and so on. So we often need to think about, is this somehow connected to the provider? Is it offline, or how does this model or algorithm or product work with the data issues? As I said, the data needs not only to be quite large, but also pre-processed properly. So it's important to read about how should you input the data, not just throw it in, but should you pre-process it, do anything specific with it before analyzing, and so on. The cost is, of course, quite substantial sometimes, especially if you train very large models or on large data. And there are also risk applications. For example, you often have to think about, is this really generalizable beyond my data or beyond my context? So it's important to think about overfitting and making sure that the model tells something not just about this data, but about the population, for example, of patients representative of the data. There's also a lot of issues with reliability and bias in AI models, which may not be apparent, which I'll discuss a bit further. But ultimately, the AI just sees the data. It doesn't understand if you have a correlation, if it has clinical bearing or sense. It just sees that there are numbers that make certain sense or make certain patterns. But you always have to look at what the AI model says. Why does it reason the way it reasons? For example, there may be some hidden bias in the algorithm, or there may be it may base the reasoning on conclusions which doesn't really make sense. So, for example, it may see two variables as very significant, but when we look at those variables, they don't mean anything clinically. So one of the things that I think is quite useful for AI is to understand literature, because AI, or at least generative AI, is a master at synthesizing data, and just thinking about ideas and reviewing literature can get really effective with the use of AI. There are many capable large language models for this. For example, Claude, which is very good for conversations and has a very human tone, so it can understand a lot of the between the line context and meaning that you discuss with it. Microsoft Copilot is another large language models which you can chat with and which can provide you services like generating images and many things like that. There's also Google Gemini, which is another alternative. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's said to be good in some context. One thing that it's good at is that it can be used to verify explanations. As you can see in this screenshot, you can click on double check response when it has responded, and then it will verify its output based on Google results. So that way it doesn't hallucinate that much. ChatGPT, of course, you have surely heard about it. One of the things that is, I would say, underutilized in ChatGPT is that it can be customizable. So in the upper right corner, you can click on Customize ChatGPT, and there you can explain how do you want to chat with ChatGPT. For example, here you see that I write that it should get straight to the point and give long lists of examples when I ask it for a list of examples. So you could kind of fine-tune it to make it even more efficient for the specific task that you work with. So when you do literature review, often it's not that there's not enough literature. It's not that it's rather that there's not enough time to read all of it. And specifically for literature review, or like for brainstorming ideas, I would say that Perplexity is quite much better than, for example, ChatGPT, because it bases these answers on published literature from reputable sources, such as you can see here, where it cites various articles. SciSpace is another very good platform where it can summarize quite neatly the results from top papers, and you can also, as you can see here, make different columns on these results. For example, insights, as you can see here, but you can also create your own columns. For example, maybe I'm interested in what study population did they have. Then you can type study population, it will filtrate that information from the relevant articles. Then there are a few less known platforms, such as the WikiChat, which sounds like it's based on Wikipedia, but it's basically based on a huge body of scientific literature, and it can provide you a very specific and accurate synthesis of the literature or the research question that you're thinking about. And there's also a platform called Storm, which lets you create like your own Wikipedia articles. If you want to prepare the material for writing a manuscript for the introduction, for example, you can use Storm. It's quite effective. So I'm not sure if you have seen this demonstration of the Cybertruck with Tesla and Elon Musk, but they basically wanted to show how strong the windows of the car is, and then it didn't go that well. I hope I will have better luck now, but I basically want to show some of these products with you that I mentioned. So for example, here is the Storm platform, which I talked about. You basically go to your you can basically input, for example, that you want to learn about asthma, or about what different cells are involved in inflammation and so on, and it will generate these very nice, basically Wikipedia articles that are customized for you, which you can then use as a boilerplate for your own introduction text or your own literary work. As you can see here, it automatically generates basically a whole lengthy article of a lot of information, which is all based on peer-reviewed literature, so it's quite neat. And WikiChat is basically like ChatGPT, which I showed previously, but it's based on a lot of academic papers, so you can get answers similar to ChatGPT, but these are more fact-checked and more likely to be accurate. Then I also want to show something which is a bit more maybe not useful for everyone, but I hope it can be for some people at least. It's called napkin.ai. So it's basically a tool which lets you create graphics from text. So like, hey, here I copied the text from a paper on food allergy and prevalence thereof. You can basically generate automatically different figures. So that's of course another aspect of AI or generative AI, that it doesn't just create text, but it can create quite interesting visuals as well, very easily. And then we come to something which is very dear to me. It's analysis using programming. And here I just want to encourage you to discover this, because I know that many of my colleagues are very keen on using SPSS or Stata or different, traditional software for performing statistical analysis just by clicking and doing things visually. But I would say that actually now in 2024, I would say that almost anyone can do programming, and it's much more efficient than, or I would say much more fruitful than using traditional statistical software for several reasons. For one, you have full reproducibility. For example, you say that every step that you do, you have full control of the procedure, whereas for example, if you run meta-analysis in a software, you don't really have full control all the time of specific parameters or how the model is implemented and so on. And also I would say that you can have much more flexibility to, for example, utilize novel approaches, novel algorithms, which you may have seen in other papers and so on. And it's not very difficult when you have the many AI assistants that you have today. Perhaps the most famous one is called GitHub Copilot. It generally costs money. I think it's $5 or $10 per month, but you can get it for free in many cases if you go to education.github.com. So if you're a doctoral student, for example, you may get it. And it's very useful. You can embed it in your program where you do the software writing, but it will help you write it. I will show you very soon. So I hope that you see it's quite small text, but here is one example of software or application for writing code. It's called Visual Studio Code. It's for free. You can download it for MacBook or Windows, and then you can install. It's quite easy. You just go to GitHub Copilot, search for it, and you will get instructions on how to install it, to embed it inside Visual Studio Code. And then you will have it on the right side, like here. You can chat with it, but most importantly, you have it inside of the code editor. So for example, here I wrote, make a Python script that loads a SPSS file and makes a table of characteristics. It basically just types away automatically. You don't have to do much. You just have to have a rough idea of what you want it to do, and then it will guide you throughout the way. And if there's something you don't understand in the code, or something that doesn't really work as you want it, you can always highlight it and then right click, and then you will see here Copilot, and then there's this explain function. So now on the right side, you'll see that it now will start to explain how the code functions, or why it wrote this code to solve this specific problem, and you can fine tune it and so on, all within the code editor. So I think it's very clever and very easy to do at least the easy or moderately easy analysis that you otherwise would use SPSS for or something like that. Then there's also, of course, the issue of when you write the manuscript, you have the idea, you have done the analysis, but now you need to write the manuscript, get it out, the results, and finalize the work, so to say. Here you can, I would say that the biggest task here is to start. I think we all have had the issues to just start writing, like where do I even start, or like we have this writer's cramp, or I would say that size space is quite good if you have already started a little bit, because then it can expand on your text or reformulate it in a way that makes more sense. As you can see here, you can have different tones in the text. So for example, make it more academic or more formal, the text that I have. And it's also free to use too. I think it's they have some quota, but you can use it for free to some extent. So I use it quite a lot to just paraphrase my own text to make it more fluent if I'm stuck in writing. Grammarly is also very good, and you can use a plugin with Microsoft to help improve your grammar or just help you speed up the writing. Trinka is also good, but compared, Grammarly is free. There are some extra features that you have to pay for, but in general, Grammarly is free. But Trinka is, I would say, a bit more thorough, but there's basically no free tier, so you have to pay for it, but it may be worth it, so you can check it out and compare between these if you want to. There's also a lot of things that we need to be careful about implementing AI and reading works that have been done with AI, because as I said, AI is a master of synthesizing data, but it also means that it's a master in fabricating data and fabricating text. So this is just one example. It's from an article where they try to generate completely false articles, completely made up articles, and they managed to make very sensible, very reasonable sounding articles completely from scratch without this data or this text. It may look like a proper abstract, but actually none of this data is real or tested. So of course it's difficult to see this, because nowadays the AI algorithms are quite clever and at writing and sounding very human-like. But it's nevertheless very important to always think critically and not just take it at face value when you read new research, especially from less reputable journals. There's also a lot of bias in AI, unfortunately, because it doesn't, in one way it's more objective because it doesn't have our human like perceptions, but it can develop bias based on the data that we input or the bias that we humans have in the data. For example, this is a screenshot of in the top section you see the risk score. The higher the risk score, the further it is to the right of committing a crime again. So of Afro-Americans, this system said that there's a very large proportion that has a high risk of committing crimes again. But when it looked at white criminals, it said that there's a very low risk of repeated crime. So which was based on quite biased data in the input. So it's very important to think critically when you assess AI-based research, but also when you perform your own research. Try to, for example, perform it in different subgroups between men and women, between different socioeconomic groups, and so on, because a lot of these things can go unnoticed otherwise. These models, as I said, AI algorithms are often quite complex to understand. So it makes it a bit difficult to assess how exactly, how truthful is this algorithm to reality. Was it done with representative data, or with some bad intent? So that's something that you should really think about. And also privacy, of course. There was this article quite recently where a few students from Harvard, I think, made uh, like basically an app from which films from your glasses and then connects it to different AI models that can extract faces, and further down the road do a reverse engineered search and find information about the person. And it didn't even take much time to do this application. So it's yeah, nowadays with these data hungry algorithms, of course this is something that will happen, but we need to think about just because it's a lot of data doesn't mean that it's not personal data or like very intimate data. We have to always consider the privacy aspect of things. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think it's difficult to say. There's so much development right now, but I think that one of the main things is that these AI models, which can often hallucinate, since they don't have the conception of fundamental things that we humans understand. But software, which we write in hard-coded manners, do have it. So I think that combining software with AI will be quite an important part of the future of AI. For example, here you see an application which can use your desktop. It has access to your desktop, and it's coupled to ChatGPT basically, so it can perform tasks and actions while using the strength of LLM to understand what should you do. And also context-specific models will be more and more popular, and here I think there's a very big gap in the literature or the research space where I really recommend you all to think about for your specific context what AI is lacking. And for example, for AlphaFold, for protein discovery or protein studies, it's basically a larger model focused on a very specific task. And I think there's a lot of power to just use the AI models that we have today, but then fine-tune it and train it further to your own specific area of research. So yeah, that was all for me. It's been quite a lot. I hope you got something out of it. It's because AI is a very big topic, but so it was a bit difficult to fit everything in 30 minutes, but I'm open to take questions, and thank you for the attention.
Well, thank you so much for your insightful presentation, Daniil, on AI tools for research innovation. You were right in time. Thank you so much. That was very brilliant. Okay, so now we'll open the floor for questions. We have 10 minutes for the Q&A. So please, I've already put in the comment section for you to put your questions in the chat, or you can also use the raise hand feature and I'll call on you to unmute and ask your question. So we'll just go through, we have 10 minutes, we'll go through a couple of questions that have been put here in the chat. So Emmanuel Gustav is asking if you could list some of the analytical AI softwares again. I think maybe we'll restrict the questions to those that can be answered within the 10 minutes. And perhaps after the session, you could give them some direct answers as well. So would you want to take this one? If you could list some of the analytical AI softwares again?
Yeah. I wrote it in the chat now. I think one of the best places to start is scikit-learn. So it's basically a big package of different algorithms, AI-based algorithms and models, which you can use for various prediction modeling, for cluster analysis, for reducing the data into a more to an embedded space, so to say, because oftentimes for different analysis you have this huge data, but you can't really analyze it directly. You have to compress it a bit. So there are many tools in scikit-learn, and it's all free and open source, so you can use it. Start from there. I think it's quite good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Jerita is asking for an explanation again on how to load the Copilot for programming, and wants to also know if it can be used for our software.
Yeah, Copilot can be used for any type of language. You can you basically just search for GitHub Copilot, and then you will get basically you will see a link on github.com. I will write the
Okay, all right. And the next one is, what are the most promising AI applications in healthcare, education, finance, etc.?
Yep. I would say that the most promising application or framework is neural networks, because these are this is a framework which can really mimic our way of thinking. So you have several layers which can connect information or input data in various nonlinear ways, much similar to how we process data and understand different associations, different patterns. So I would say that there are so many different types of neural networks, but I would say that that is the most promising application for clinical, because it's also so versatile. You can input all types of data with it. You can do both discovery of different patterns, but also confirm diagnosis or improve prediction models and so on with it. So it's very powerful, and yep.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Jarita also wants an explanation on the AI plagiarism tool and how to avoid AI plagiarism. You could say something about that.
Yeah, this is quite difficult because nowadays most AI models you can also fine-tune your prompt to make it explicitly less likely to be caught in an AI detection service. So it's kind of like this attrition battle. The plagiarism software, detection software, tries to outsmart the large language models, and they try to outsmart the other ones. So it's I don't think there's a good like silver bullet to truly, or like detect with certainty AI plagiarism nowadays, unless you really copy something quite long, and there can be some words that have been found in GitHub for ChatGPT, that it uses certain words quite a lot. There's some studies that have been done that show that you can identify it partly, but honestly, I think it's you really have to judge the content and not how it was written, because and try to use different sources to see if this text reappears in other published works. But if it's fabricated from the sense of just the ChatGPT made it up, that's very difficult.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, most of the AI tools aren't free. What's the way to go for resource-scarce societies?
Yep, I agree. It's a bit tricky. I would say that, and the solution is quite tricky as well. But I would say that the best solution, is to use R software, the R programming language, because that's the and Python programming language packages, because there's a vast open source community there, where you can use a lot of tools which have been provided for free by the community on platforms like GitHub. So my go-to source is GitHub to find the software to do analysis. For example, I know that there's a lot of statistical analysis done with M+, which is a software which is very expensive, but you can do almost everything that you can do with M+, with the LCMMR package. So I would say that I will write the name here. The CRAN, C-R-A-N, is quite a good platform to search for R packages, and GitHub. There you can find both R packages and Python packages. But try to go open source. There's a lot of, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see Swat Ahmed's hand up. I'll let him unmute to ask his question. And
then... yes. Thank you so much for this comprehensive and fruitful session. What if we use AI to improve the language and to rephrase and arrange the writing style in an original work? Can be detected by plagiarism detector or whatever type of system that this is AI generated work, so we can threaten our original work by using AI? Thank you.
No, I think it depends on the actual large language model that you use. I think that and it also depends on how you prompt. So I would say that one of the biggest takeaways from the biggest takeaway for a AI generated text is that you prompt incorrectly, because I mean, this is a whole research area almost, but you can similar to how I showed you the GitHub customization, you can customize the GitHub or the ChatGPT or the large language model to make use of a certain language which is more natural or less likely to fall under plagiarism tools. But this all changes week by week, so I don't have a definitive answer of like if a certain solution is able to bypass plagiarism checks or not. I think it depends on how you prompt, what large language model you use, and how much you try to rephrase. I'm kind of against writing with AI because ultimately you should, of course, always have your own voice and your own thoughts behind it. But rephrasing is very useful and just helping in improving grammar and so on.
Response, and we'll take the final question, which is from Geoffrey. What are the benefits of using Grammarly
over Quillbot? I would say that Grammarly is much more mature in the as I said, nowadays there's a lot of development in doing context-specific AI, and this is one of those examples where both Grammarly and Quillbot tries to do a lot of work with phrasing and grammar control and so on. But I would say that Grammarly has been around for I would say, if I remember correctly, much longer, and they have amassed much more maturity in their large language model. So I think it's much more human-like and more responsive to find nuance in your language. But it depends on your context, but I would say that Grammarly is a bit more high performant.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniil, for your very, very insightful presentation. And thank you everyone also for your thoughtful questions. And this has really been a highly engaging discussion.